Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Friday, May 7th, 2021. I am Andrew Hansen alongside Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach. And he's back after a day off. Coach, how are you feeling here on a 10-game NBA Friday?
Man, I feel like Barry Bonds. I'm juiced up, all
Wow.
juiced up. Look, my
Wow.
neck looks thicker today. You know
You,
what I'm saying?
we can't get you out then. It's just you're going to be on base no matter what.
There's
It's
no
either a
doubt.
walk or if you get one pitch to hit, it's a round tripper.
They better just intentionally walk me. That's all I'm
Ooh,
saying.
I like it. I like the
10
confidence.
games in the NBA,
Yeah.
14 in MLB, golf this weekend with our guys doing well. Oh, it does not get better than this. I was chomping at the bit to get this cracking, and we're calling it Fight for the Family Friday. So the entire Coach Talk family is gonna mix it up and take some stuff down.
Yeah, and this one's interesting because half of the teams are involved in a back-to-back. There's only
Yeah,
one 230 total out of all 10 games here.
yeah.
So we are going to have to battle here and try to get it done. So start us off.
Yeah, it's a wild slate with lots of guys sitting in and out. Right off the bat, we're 7 o'clock Eastern. New Orleans Pelicans against the Philadelphia 76ers. And it is the first night of a back-to-back for Philly, so we got to watch that. They are a 9-point favorite. The total is 227. For Philly, Korkmaz is out. And for the Pelicans, some interesting news here. Uh, Nikhil Alexander Walker is questionable, so we may see him return, but I would assume on a minutes restriction. Ingram and Hart are out, and we have Adams doubtful. So we're going to get those multiple different guys at center with Hernan Gomez and Hayes more than likely. So, it creates an interesting game. The pace is solid, 10th and 11th. We know the Pelicans defense is very ragged at best at 26, but Philly's second. So, and they've got most of their defensive guns ready to go. Certainly not my favorite game. 227 is a big number though on this slate.
Yeah.
We've had 234s and 240s and 250s, but 227 is in the top couple of totals. So it makes it a little bit tricky. The key, Andrew, is going to come down to can the Pelicans keep the game close enough, to get big run from all the guys because Doc's going to want to rest some of the Philly guys for tomorrow if he can. So, that's the question. If you trust the game to stay close and get big minutes, certainly Zion is in play. I mean, especially with Ingram out, he's a key player in this game. And so is Lonzo Ball. He's really stepped up his game recently. He had one bad game, bounced right back, and almost broke the slate. And then on the Philly side, obviously, Hernan Gomez can throw a body out on him. As far as Embiid goes, but I'm sure he'll push Jackson Hayes around. They'll utilize probably all 12 of those files to slow him down. But I'm not sure I want to pay up in game one, in where I'm not completely comfortable with the total amount of minutes that Embiid's going to play. I think it's hard not to want to put some Philly guys on there just because of the Pelicans' defense and the pace in this game. But I think maybe this is where you can get a few sneakier plays. I think Simmons at times has been okay, but he's been very, very inconsistent. But his price has come way down, so you can consider him. Tobias Harris might be a really solid play. This just feels like a Harris game. Again, he needs to get the minutes. On the Pels side, not even though Ball's been hot, I'm probably not going to go there because of the Simmons defense. And Zion's the target really for me. I think I know his price is crazy, and he's had a few inconsistent games where he's not rebounding that well. But I think he needs to here with Adams out. It should give him a few extra rebounds. And if they're going to stay in this game at all, he's going to have to be dominant. And he's too quick for Embiid to come out and guard him, in my opinion. And he's stronger than, the rest of the matchups, Tobias probably. Wouldn't mind going a little Zion tonight to start the slate. but I'm not going to jump on this game that much just because of the concern of the second game tomorrow for Philly and the possibility for it being a little lopsided.
Yeah, I feel very similar about the game and the hesitations. The Pelicans need to win, so
Yeah.
Lonzo and Zion are going to get after it. It's really tough defensive matchup though, so feels more like a GPP option there. I'd be more likely to get one of the value plays stepping up in Ingram's absence. Najee Marshall, who just signed a 3-year extension. I
Yeah.
like him as a value play. And then James Johnson should get a little extra run. He's even cheaper than Marshall. And they both got 23 minutes last game.
Right.
So I like them to be higher in the 20s at least. And so I think you could go with one of those guys. But I don't want to select anybody on the Sixers side for my main slate primary lineups. One of these guys could take advantage on the perimeter like Seth Curry or Danny Green and get hot, hit a few threes. All of a sudden, they've paid off their value, but it's a GPP option only. And I
It
think we
is.
have some much better value plays later on in the slate.
Yeah, you make a good point that the Pelicans give up a lot of threes. That is tempting.
Yep. All right, let's go to 7:30. There's one game here. It's Boston and Chicago. ESPN game. Celtics favored by 4, 222.5 total. And we have Chicago on a back-to-back after that solid win over Charlotte. For the news, Jaylen Brown still out after that collision on the sidelines. Robert Williams questionable with a toe. Tristan Thompson and Langford probable. So we're not sure about that big position for Boston. Now, the game in general, I would call average, sort of like that Charlotte Chicago matchup last night. These teams are pretty much in the middle in all the rankings.
Yeah.
Boston tied for sixth, so it is important for them to get this one. Chicago fighting for their lives at 11th, three and a
Yeah.
half back. So I think, although it's not the best matchup on paper, I think you'll get full effort from both teams. So you could get one of these Celtics with Jaylen Brown out. I think Kemba's a little expensive for me. So it maybe would be Tatum. I mean, he's really expensive here, over 10 grand. There are a lot of value plays that we'll get to though, so you can pick and choose a couple studs here tonight and get him in. Evan Fournier really was strong in that last one against his former team Orlando. I expect he'll start again. He's a mid-tier option. I don't think I'll mess with those bigs. And then with Chicago, because it's a back-to-back, and Levine and Vucevic were both, battling back from absences yesterday. They played decent minutes. I don't want to pay up for them again. So I'm going to fade Chicago here and maybe pick out one of these Celtics.
Yeah, I mean it's not the greatest game. It's a shame because, like you said, both teams really need it. I mean, Chicago's pretty much in a win or you're out kind of scenario this next week with their last 6 games. So, they're going to throw it at the wall, but you've got guys that aren't completely healthy. So, I'm with you. I'm not high on spending up for Levine or Vuk when their health is in question. Don't really want to dig too deep with the ancillary guys. Patrick Williams always cheap and a possibility, but you really don't have to go as deep with all the value and 20 teams playing. On the Boston side, I'd love to be able to get Tatum here. I just don't know if I can afford that salary because, obviously, when Brown's out, a lot of that usage goes to Tatum. A decent chunk of it goes to Kemba Walker also, and Kobe White and Levine. That their backcourt defense is not that good at all. So Kemba could be primed for a nice game here, but I'm with you. I don't know why his price has shot up a little bit here, and that concerns me. So, probably a one-off for me at best here. And if I can find the salary, it would be Tatum. If not, the secondary guy would be Kemba, but not a game I'm going to be focusing on.
Okay.
Next 8 o'clock game, or actually the first 8 o'clock game. The other one was 7:30. So we've got 1, 2, 3 8 o'clock games. Minnesota at Miami.
Actually, I
It
think you've
is
got Orlando, Charlotte.
Orlando, Charlotte. Okay, sorry about that. You
You
always
you
got to
didn't want
keep
to
me on target.
you didn't want to deal with the Orlando out list.
I tried. How come you didn't correct me when I gave you the better two last couple days ago? Okay, so and I'm glad you keep me on track because on the weekends when I'm by myself, I'm all over the board,
Right.
and sometimes I'll go over a game twice or miss a game. It's hilarious. All right, Orlando and Charlotte. Charlotte, it's on a second night of a back-to-back, as we know. They had that game with Chicago last night. They're 7-point favorite, pretty low total, 217. And a lot of that has to do with the pace, 20th and 21st. And then you've got defensively 24th and 18th. So there can be some advantageous plays here, especially with the poor D on both sides. But as you said, with my attempt to avoid this Orlando disaster, I mean, they've basically mailed it in. They're sitting all their guys with any experience. So out of this game are Carter, MCW, Ennis, Okiki, Ross, and Porter. So that leaves all those young guys. Now, there's a lot of good young guys in this game, though. I mean, Bamba smashed for us last time. We had talked about it right before the slate. I said he could easily go for a 50 burger, and he was right there. So he's certainly a possibility with getting the majority of the center minutes. Guy been on Mo Wagner. I was a little concerned last game. I'm not going to go back to him because he didn't play a ton of the minutes at the 4. He did some, but he did mainly just backed up Bomba at the 5. So the Mo Money, Mo Wagner is probably not going to make my lineup here. The only two veterans that are playing are Harris and Bacon, but they're getting just limited roles. The guys that interest me here, and I know everybody's now saying, "Oh, sure, everybody's jumping on him now," but R.J. Hampton's a stud, man. That kid he's long. I mean, we saw him play. We played against him here. He's from Little Elm, right up the road here, and I think he's coming into his own. I love what I've been reading. It sounds like they're leaning on playing Anthony and Hampton together in the backcourt, making that the backcourt of the future for Orlando. So you got to love that. I think he'll let Anthony and Hampton play a decent amount of minutes together. I think they're both playable in this game, but I lean a little bit more towards Hampton. He's just getting the minutes. He's got that Westbrook nose to the basket for the rebound to go push the ball. I mean, he just has that style of game to get all of the ancillary stats. So I like Hampton. I like Anthony here. Doubt that I'll go with both, but I'm going to find a way to get one of those guys in. And Bomb is in the mix for me at center, especially with, I have to go to the coffee, especially with Charlotte's woes at center. Looks like maybe Biombo starts again. So I'll have exposure here on the Orlando side. I really think they're a doable team here to make a difference just because those guys are going to get big minutes. I mean, they're going to have maybe 8, 9 guys max. So, you can take advantage of that. From the Charlotte side, it gets a little bit more difficult because, the pace isn't great. And to really pay off the price, if the game stays close, LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier are both expensive. And that creates, a tough spot, especially if you're trying to go stars and scrubs, because they're more so higher end, mid-level kind of guys. And I don't know if they're going to fit in there. Now, I think they're both good plays. I think LaMelo is looking good. They seem to be capping him around 30 minutes, which is fine, but he was getting 38, 39 in some of those games before he got hurt. So going to keep an eye on those guys. I think, you can always talk about Caleb Martin as the cheap price guy or McDaniels. Probably not going to go anything beyond that. I think the center spot may be split between whoever they're going to roll out there between Biombo and Zeller and PJ and whomever. So not a great game, but I do like some of the youth value on the Orlando side just because of opportunity and minutes played.
Yeah, I'm on Bamba again here. I like that spot for him for sure, and reasonable price tag still. So I feel pretty good about him. With the rest of Orlando, I would lean towards Hampton or pass. His price is still reasonable, getting 30 minutes, and he's been more aggressive offensively and
Sure
more
has.
more involved than Anthony. So I'd rather go Hampton or pass. And then with Charlotte, I agree. The only price I would consider right now is Rozier on FanDuel at 62. He's still reasonable, but
Yeah.
on the back to back and the pace, I'm planning to probably pass Charlotte.
Okay.
All right, the next 8 o'clock game, Minnesota and Miami.
So that gives me Houston on top of
There,
having to deal with
hey,
Orlando.
you got the biggest total on the board coming up though. I got to deal with Miami's defense,
Oh,
sixth
yeah.
ranked and slow pace, 29th.
Completely opposite teams here.
Yeah, that's exactly true because Minnesota's fast and terrible at defense. It's
Yeah.
a 224.5 total. Miami favored by 6. We have Jaden McDaniels out for
Yeah.
Minnesota, and we have Oladipo still out, and then question marks for Hero and Jimmy Butler. So, although it's a dud in the fact that we have Miami, and we usually don't like to get too excited about Miami games, with Butler out potentially, then it's better matchups across the board. And D'Angelo Russell, the key number for him, coach, 37. That's how many minutes he got last game,
Yeah,
and they
that's
got him.
impressive.
They got him in the starting lineup. He's still in the 7K range, so I like him here. Even though it's not the best matchup. And then with Jaden McDaniels out, one of the potential value plays is Juancho Hernan Gomez. Really good price on DraftKings. And Anthony Edwards, I want to talk about him because he's been blowing up lately. And the initial instinct here is to avoid him because it's Miami. But
Right.
look what happened in the last game with Jimmy Butler out. Your man, Tim Hardaway Jr., hit 10 threes
Yeah.
against Miami.
They
And
just fold up defensively when Butler's not in there. They really do.
it's still a little surprising because they had Iguodala and Ariza out there, and they're solid, but
They're past their prime, though.
they are. They are. So Edwards, to me, a GPP option. He's priced up a little bit after the big recent performances, but I wouldn't mind one of these Minnesota guys because of all the news here. And then with Miami, you could look at Nunn or Dragic with if Butler's out. They're decent price tags. Not my favorite plays, but I think there's a good chance I'll get Russell out there tonight and maybe another guy from this game. We'll see.
Well, not even a whisper about Cat, huh?
Who? Probably not tonight.
No, I'm with you. This is a tricky game. It really is. I mean, again, it's one of those scenarios that I hate because the podcast we don't have the info yet. But like I said, Butler changes everything. I mean, not only defensively, which he completely shuffles the deck, for Miami when he's in there, but offensively, I mean, you take his production away, all of a sudden guys like Kendrick Nunn, Trevor Ariza, these guys all become playable guys. Whereas they wouldn't be, in my opinion, if Butler was in. So I need that news as much on the Miami side as the Minnesota side. I'm with you on D'Angelo Russell. I think that I think this is a good spot for him to continue his upward movement. Minnesota's played with a lot more energy, and they're trying, I think, to finish the season with some respectability to build on for next year. And it's noticeable that coach has them motivated. So, a little interest in Anthony Edwards, a little interest in D'Angelo Russell, but only if Butler sits. Not both of them. I'd have to make the decision there. I agree. I'm not going with Cat, just with Bam and the slow pace. Miami is the second slowest paced team in the league, and they've been consistent with that. And then their defense, usually slows folks down as well. So you can't, really depend on loading up on any Miami games, to be honest with you, even if it's against a team like Minnesota or Sacramento. But there's a consideration there because of the Butler factor on the Minnesota side, because they are putting up points. I'm a little worried about that position with McDaniel sitting, because I think they're probably going to split it even between Vanderbilt and Hernan Gomez, and that's not going to work for me. So, it's pretty simple here. I think Miami, Kendrick Nunn possibly in play for me. Maybe Ariza as the two of the super value guys. I'm not going to spend up for Bam or Butler if he does play. And then we'll probably pull the trigger on one of the Minnesota studs in Russell or Edwards if Butler sits. But that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a possibility if Butler plays that I may come out of this game as a complete pass.
Okay.
All right, now Houston, Milwaukee. This is hilarious. I've never seen, in all the years I've done DFS, I've never seen this many guys out for one team in the NBA. I posted it in our Discord. It's literally like 12 guys on the list. So are they going to be able to field a team? We were talking about that beforehand. I certainly hope so, with the COVID thing settled down, being able to actually have some G League organization getting ready to go and different things happening. I think they should be able to pull enough guys together. But here's the list, as rough as it is. So this may be the time when you want to go eat a sandwich. By the time I finish reading the list, you'll be good to go. But they've got Porter out, Olynyk out.
I've got Olynyk as questionable.
I have him as... Yes, I have him questionable on one and out on another. So let's follow that one closely. House doubtful, Wood questionable, Tate questionable, Wilson out, Bradley out, Augustine questionable. Does that jive with all your stuff?
Yes.
All right. So really what we were looking at between the Olynyk, Wood, Tate, Augustine group, if two of those guys play, we should be able to make it. But it's going to be tight because Brooks, Jeffries, there's not that many guys that are already ruled in. So obviously, Houston is going to be a great play for probably two guys once we know the 8 guys that are listed. Because even with 8 guys you have to have in order to play the game, probably 2 of them will be close to not needing to play them unless it's an emergency. So it may be a 6-man rotation. You could see guys like Armani Brooks play 48 minutes. I don't think it's out of the question. Now, is that good enough to play them? We always back up to some extent, money equals minutes. And if you're going to tell me I'm going to get 2 of these guys at 45 plus minutes, which is very likely, that's the news we have to follow, because that creates opportunity. And it doesn't matter if this game blows out, which it more than likely will. I mean, Milwaukee's a 16.5 point favorite, but it's still a 232 number, which is the number one highest total on the board. So for me, this is how I'm approaching this game, Andrew. And I think a lot of people are going to disagree. I'm not playing any Milwaukee guys. I refuse to pay up for Holiday and Giannis to see them play 2.5 quarters. And I don't even want the DiVincenzo's, Holiday's, Middleton's, Lopez's, Connaughton's, all those guys. To me, in this game, it just reeks of 22, 23 minutes for each guy. I mean, there's no way, in my opinion, this game stays close. And I'm not spending up. Those people say, well, in 2.5 quarters, Giannis can still smash. Well, not at the price he's at. I'm not buying it. So I'm fading Milwaukee. That's my stiff stance. And a lot of people will at least roster one guy there. And I'm going to try to put 2 Rockets in there once we solidify that this game is going to play and we know who the 8 guys are. Because if Augustine's the 8th guy that's going to dress and he's hurt and he's an old veteran, they're not going to play him. So again, that'll take it to 7. There's probably another guy in that boat that takes it to 6. So I'll take 45 to 48 minutes from a couple of guys at value price to help me really create a stars and scrubs lineup. So this this ends up being a key play for me in this Rockets game.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar. I don't want to play anybody on Milwaukee unless there's news and all of a sudden Giannis or one of the big guys is sitting. Then maybe a Portis if he's starting or a DiVincenzo. But right now I'm planning to pass Milwaukee and get at least two Houston guys in there as well.
Nice.
And I'm focused most on KJ Martin if he starts again,
Yeah.
and then it's the guy I don't like is Daquan Jeffries. I just don't like his game
Right.
that much. But I will consider Augustine, Brooks, and Lamb. They're all in the 3K range on both sites. And
Yeah.
Augustine is really the X factor for me because he hasn't been playing much. He dressed the last one. I think they dressed him just to get to 8. But
Right.
this would be a revenge game for him. So keep that in
Yeah.
mind. And who knows if it's an ankle issue where he could have played, but they just held him out as a veteran. But maybe they need him in this one, and he's ready to go. So he's worth a look for me. And then just because of that volume with Brooks and Lamb, they're in play for me. So,
Yeah. Lamb's coming off a good game too.
yep,
He's on my radar for sure.
yep, 36 minutes off the bench, played really well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's get ready to play at least two Houston guys here and take advantage of the value.
I'm with you.
All right, let's move to the second half of the slate. We go to 8:30 Eastern, Cleveland and Dallas. Your Mavericks are 10-point favorites at home after a nice victory last night over Brooklyn. 219 total. We have Darius Garland out, KP doubtful, and I'm thinking likely out. And
Yeah, he's not going to play.
yeah, so Dallas is,
And Kleba's doubtful too, by the way.
yep. So Dallas, after that big win here, they go for 2 in a row. They're in 5th. I think they just push ahead, get it done, take advantage of the fact that it's Cleveland without Garland. And, even though Garland's out here, I don't like Sexton at his price or really any of the Cleveland guys. I think, guys like Osman, Wade, they could pay off with a tightened rotation. But I'm looking to pass those guys. This is a slow-paced game here, 25 and 24.
It is.
So it's not very exciting for me. Luka here's the X factor here. Do you pay up for him and have him just dominate the game against this bad Cleveland backcourt? He could certainly do it. It is a back-to-back, so not ideal pace. But he's probably the guy I'd most likely play. Tim Hardaway Jr. was solid last night, shot it well. He's not as good on back-to-backs, so I don't know if I'll go to one of those guys on the wing. DFS played pretty well. I think I'll probably pass those guys. And then the bigs got Willie Cauley-Stein 21 minutes last night, Powell 27. They were both good. They're cheap on DraftKings, a little more expensive on FanDuel. So not my primary focus here. To me, it's probably either Luka, if you're using all that value on the slate, or pass.
Interesting. If you want to laugh, no one would believe it. You got to look at Dallas's last 10, 15 games. Every good team they play, they've been right in the game or they've won most of them. But every really terrible team, they lose to. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen. And it's been consistent on and on. I mean, 0-3 against Sacramento, and just every lousy team is a loss lately, and every Milwaukee and LA and all these teams are wins. So I have no idea what to expect. Zero confidence going into this game with Cleveland, though. So I look at this a little bit different. I mean, it's a back-to-back. Last night was a big day for the Mavs. There were more fans allowed at the game. They had Dirk there and George Bush. They were doing a special presentation to Dirk because Bush had put him in his immigrants book that he just released. So there was a big, thing at the arena and ceremony and the whole 9 yards. So, it was a big game and, big situation. And now they have to get up for Cleveland the next night. And that is scary. And not only that, but then the day after, tomorrow. They play at Cleveland. They play Cleveland twice in a row. So yeah, I'm not sure about how this game's going to roll. So there's some possibilities here. Sexton is expensive. He definitely is. But Jay Rich has played poorly of all the Mavericks, even though they're on this good run. And he hasn't finished any games. In fact, he hasn't even been getting in the fourth quarter. They've played Josh Green over him, and they're always finishing with Jalen Brunson. So, Richardson would be in there to try to slow down Sexton, but I'm not sure he's going to get big enough minutes. And Sexton's in play for me. I'm a little concerned about his, what he's going to bring to the table. And I think this game's going to go largely ignored and very lowly owned. The guy that I'm most high on here is Jared Allen, though. Let's not forget that the Mavericks can't stop any post player, and they just got lucky and didn't have to really play against much of a post player the last couple of games. But Allen is the real deal, and he can score in bunches. The center by committee basically with Powell and
Cauley Stein.
And Cauley Stein. It just doesn't excite me. So Allen's probably going to be my center, he or Bamba, or both, depending on which site. And then I'm going to consider Sexton a little bit because if it's going to be a game at all, I think he's going to be the key to it. And then on the Mavs side, I'm not going to spend up for Luka on a back-to-back either. I mean, the defense from Cleveland is horrible, but I just don't think they're going to push him that hard. I think you're going to see a few extra minutes for Jalen Brunson, and that brings him into play for me because his price is still cheap, and I feel his floor is pretty safe as well. So Hardaway, he can get hot, but he can go 8 for 10 or 0 for 10. So he's a GPP kind of guy always for me. But I'm going to look at Allen for sure, possibly Sexton, and come back with a value play on the Dallas side of Brunson. So this game will probably be one of the 2 or 3 lowest owned games, but I'm going to have some ownership here because I don't see this one unfolding, I think, as most people in the industry do.
All right.
I'm on to the 9:00 game.
You are.
Denver and Utah.
That's the plan. We'll see if you go ahead and do it.
Yes.
Right.
Utah -4, 216.5. Both teams on the first night of a back-to-back. No pace here. Denver 26, Utah 16. Solid defense. Denver 11, Utah 3. We know that Barton, Dozier, and Morris are out for Denver. Conley and Mitchell out for Utah. So a lot of key players still out in this game. Good defense, slower pace. Definitely not a target game for me. Now, yes, this should be competitive and, could come down to the wire. So, you could get some extended minutes for some of the key guys. Certainly can always consider Ingles and Clarkson both very much in play when Conley's out specifically. So those are 2 go-to possible guys. Not going to go with Bogdanovich. I think he'll get Gordon defense. Then you've got just, the Niang situation, maybe Millsap on the other side. All those guys just not really in play for me. I think Porter's probably going to get Royce O'Neal defense. So a lot of self-elimination of guys here with the matchups being what they are. Don't want to spend up for the Joker Gobert scenario for obvious reasons with defense and the way that should play out. So even though this is a really good game, I'd like to watch some of this game. I am going to completely fade it.
Yeah, for me, with the context and then the price tags, it just doesn't excite me. Rivers on DraftKings is the only price I like on Denver. He's 3,700. Played really well in that last one.
He did. Yeah.
So that's an option. And then Utah has a couple cash options, Ingles, Bogdanovich. But I don't love either one. So this is most likely a pass game for me as well.
Very good.
All right, we'll move to the 10 o'clock hour on the East Coast. 3 games here that will comprise the after-hours slate that we build lineups for as well for
I
members.
love it. I love when there's 3
Yeah,
games.
I prefer two, so I'm glad one of us is happy here. Now, it's a good thing there are 3 games because we start off with New York and Phoenix,
Dud.
which means
Yeah.
slow with awesome
So in other words,
defense.
it is a
It
2 game.
is a 2 game slate, actually. It looks like 3. It looks a lot like 3,
A
but it's actually
facade.
2. We
Yeah,
have 218 total. This is, of course, the lowest total of these last 3. Phoenix
it
favored
is.
by 7. Very good teams here, though, and they're great at what they do. New York in 4th place in the East by a game, so they want to keep rolling. Phoenix in 2nd. So it is an important game for these guys.
Yeah.
And we do have just enough injury news to make a couple possibilities for me. On the New York side, we have Burks and Quigley doubtful.
Right.
So and then quickly on the Phoenix side, Crowder out, Cam Johnson questionable. So with Burks and Quigley doubtful, that's 40 minutes right there from the last game. If they don't play, my man Elfrid Payton has to get a few more minutes. He got 17 in the last game. Rose had 27, so he can't take
Yeah.
all 40 of those minutes because that would be a few too many, Coach. It wouldn't add up. So I
Yeah.
think Payton has to get at least 24 minutes, and he is ultra cheap. Not a good matchup, but
Yes. Yeah.
he's an option for me on this slate. I don't I don't think I want to play any other Nick. So that's it for me on the main slate. And then with Phoenix, we've got some tough matchups here. Booker, I think, will face Bullock. Bridges, probably a better matchup, but he's not quite as reliable offensively. Torrey Craig is the value play that I could look at with Phoenix. I think he's going to have to be out there to guard Randall. Big minutes. He's really cheap. He's had a couple very good games lately. A couple, more like duds where he gets 22 minutes, doesn't do a whole lot. So a little more of a GPP look. But in general, this is past the studs and maybe look at a one-off.
Yeah, this is not a great DFS game, but I do have a target here. I'm really seriously thinking about Chris Paul. I mean, Phoenix came off a dud game where they got beat, and they need to pull it back together. And what this Knicks little bit shorter backcourt does is create a situation where I think Peyton, who's decent defensively, but a lot of Rose too, are there. Between those guys, they're probably going to have to guard Paul. And I think he really is able to take advantage of that. And his, this historic assist to turnover ratio, when a guy gets you 7, 8, 9 assists and only turns it over once or 0, I mean, it really helps the DFS numbers. And then he can score the ball too. So I really like Chris Paul. He's the target for me in this game. I do agree with you. I think Bullock will try to lock down Booker. And that's not great. All the other matchups are a little shaky. I will say too, I just can't. Even though it's amazing. This goes to show you how nuts the backcourt is for the Knicks. 2 guys probably out that get big minutes, and I still don't feel comfortable playing a Knicks guy because I do think Peyton and Rose will probably split the game, and with 20 teams playing 22, 23 minutes. At point isn't going to get it done for me. So, I'm hoping this game stays close because that's the only life support you have on a game with the 30th and 27th pace and 4th and 7th defense. So, it will be the other game that I, had alluded to with the one that I'm, like the Cleveland Dallas game. I think this game will also be very low owned because of those specific numbers, because they're not going to pop on anybody's optimizers and things they're looking at because of the pace and the defense. So, I think I might be able to come out with a gem here. And Chris Paul is as of right now is my point guard.
All right.
All right. Game 2 in the 10 o'clock games, game 9 of this huge slate. It is the wonderful Los Angeles Lakers at the Portland Trailblazers. Lakers on the second night of a back-to-back. And would you say the Lakers are in shambles, or is it just me?
That's a good word for it.
They are just a hot mess right now, man. Portland's an 8.5-point favorite, so that'll tell you sort of where the Lakers stand right now. Again, it's 221.5. You have the 15th and 17th pace teams. Lakers somehow, some way, I don't know who's fixing the numbers, but they're still number one in defense.
Amazing, right?
I don't understand it. And Portland's second to last. So to be an 8.5 point favorite with that oddity of statistic is bizarre.
Two
But
different ways, Coach, to get to 37 and 29. That's both
I
where
guess
they both sit.
Two opposite ways to do it. Right now, AD's questionable. He says he's going to play, but we know better. I mean, first of all, how does a guy twist his ankle and then get back spasms on the way
That was
when he falls?
insane. I mean,
Come on.
first of all, Anthony, why are you taking that wing three and then sprinting backwards at an angle? Don't you think you're going to run into the table?
It makes
And then,
no sense.
Yeah, and he's sitting there holding his ankle, and then they somehow announce in the second half he has back spasms. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to believe that?
I mean, you just cannot trust him. So God knows if he's going to play or not, but I wouldn't count on it. I'm not putting him in my projections. And then, they've got four other guys out. The infamous Dudley, but THT, LeBron, and Schroeder all out. So yeah, they're banged up pretty good. The only one on Portland key is Norman Powell. He's questionable. So man, what a disaster this game is to try to figure out. Like you say, the pieces just don't all fit. Portland, this is an important game for them. It's a home game. They've got a wounded dog here in the Lakers. You think they're going to want to put them out of their misery, but is Lillard or McCollum a play here? I don't know if this game stays close enough. Caruso and Pope will probably be the starting backcourt. They get after it decently defensively. And so I don't really want to spend up for the Portland guys. You could look, I guess, at the two aforementioned backcourt of the Lakers because they're both cheap, but you can't trust them on a slate this big. Kuzma's up and down and all over the joint. Drummond against Nurkic is going to be a good battle between those two, but they both have backups that get big minutes. So, I don't trust that either. I want those minutes. So there's probably a great play or two from this game. I just am not seeing it. And I switch glasses and everything to try to find a nugget here. I just don't trust anything, either because of the pricing or the matchup. It's just an odd game that I really don't want to hang my hat on that big. So, I'll tell you right now, with these three games, the majority, probably six of my guys are going to come out of the game that you get, the San Antonio-Sacramento game, because I think these other two games are just troublesome to figure out. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm similar here on this one. I think the only guys I would consider right now would be the 1, 2, 3 for the Lakers. Caruso, KCP, Kuzma, good prices, bad defense on the other side. So we get the back-to-back, but it is Portland. So
If
one of
AD's
those.
in, are you going to consider him with no minutes restriction?
Am I going to consider AD?
Yeah, if
No.
he doesn't have a minutes restriction.
Absolutely not. With Covington and AD involved in the AD consideration.
I agree. He could get a pinky cramp as he's shooting a foul shot.
Absolutely, yeah. And if he's out there, then I probably don't look at Kuzma.
Right.
That was the absurdity of the after-hour slate last night. AD plays 9 minutes, and then Kuzma all of a sudden takes over. There's nobody else to shoot the ball, so he ran the show and shot it every time, and he played well. We know that he has that potential, but he needs those four guys out to have a game like that. He needs everybody.
He's a
out.
volume shooter. There's no doubt about it. He's the kind of guy, if he was on a really bad team, like if you stuck him on the Oklahoma City Thunder, he'd probably score 28 a game.
Right, exactly.
But not going to get it done in this scenario, I don't think. But we'll see.
All right, last game of the night, San Antonio, Sacramento. This is another one of the higher totals here on the board, 226. San Antonio favored by 5. And this one on paper, to me, could be, like the second best game behind Houston, Milwaukee. We've got these teams battling for the playoff positioning. San Antonio's 10th, and they're up by a game and a half. And then Sacramento's in 12th. They're 2.5 back. They've won 4 in a row. They're pushing hard. And so you've got these teams that really need this one. But the problem here is that the coach for San Antonio is named Popovich. And
Never heard.
it's a front end for San Antonio. So we had to ruin this opportunity with those two things. Otherwise, it would be ideal. We've got Sacramento's great pace, their awful defense. So, I definitely zero in on this one the most out of the 3 late night games, like you said.
Nothing can go wrong with a Pop and Walton coach game.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, seriously, what a combination. I mean, look at what happened with San Antonio the last game against Utah. It was an island game.
Yeah.
DeJounte Murray played 19 minutes and DeMar DeRozan played 18.
It's inexplicably unexplainable. How's that?
Yeah, it's a mouthful. It's a mess. But we get a great matchup here for San Antonio. So does Pop say, all right, I taught you your lesson. You guys came out flat. I played you in the teens for minutes. Now they come out motivated. They need it. And Murray and DeRozan go get it. They're both in play for me because of this matchup. Pirtle is in play for me, although he was in the doghouse as well. I like matchups for centers like that against Sacramento.
Yeah.
That's probably it for me on the main slate, even though Keldon is cheap and Devin is cheap as another starter. It's one of those 3 guys primarily for me. And then with Sacramento, Fox, Barnes, and Metu, we have all of them as questionable. So big turning points there. Fox, ultra expensive. I'm not going to go there. Same thing with Barnes. If those guys play, I'm not going to play them because of their price. If they sit and we get the same rotation of guys, DeLon Wright, man, he has really stepped up.
He has
59 and 60 fantasy points the last 2 games. Just
good Lord,
awesome. His price is up now. Tougher matchup with Murray, so I'm not as fired up about him. I think at this point I'd rather take Murray, although it's shaky because it's Pop on the front end.
Yeah.
And then Bagley had another huge game. He's priced up now, a little too high for me on FanDuel. 5,900 on DraftKings is playable. Again, only if Barnes is out. And then Terrence Davis maybe as a value, but I still like these Houston-Milwaukee value plays better. So the crazy thing is, although it has a lot of potential, Coach, I'm not ready to throw 5 guys out there. It's more like maybe a couple Spurs and hope that they get full run.
Well, this is a stack game for me if Fox and Barnes sit. I mean, if they play, it just jumbles it into a disastrous mess for me because if they sit, I think Wright and Hill have both. I mean, I've played them both consistently in the last few games, and they've been great. And I know the price is up on Wright a little bit, but if Fox is out, I don't care about Murray's defense or not. DeLon Wright is playing basketball, and his price is still, even though it's gone up, reasonable. So if they sit, Wright and Hill are definitely in play for me, and Bagley. I hate Bagley. He's one of my least favorite players, but he really has stepped up. Now, I will say, against the interior defense of San Antonio, it's a risk. And on top of that, Bagley did get to play against some teams without a good interior defense like the Mavs. So, I'm not as high on Bagley as I am Wright and Hill. Only if all the guys are out would I consider him. And then on the San Antonio side, I'm with you. I'm not afraid here, specifically on the after-hour slate for sure. But even to look at these guys for the main slate, I think the guys in play here are Murray, DeRozan, and those are the 2 main guys that I'm looking at here. And the reason I like both of them is I think just the up pace, the bad defense by Sacramento, and the fact that neither one played big minutes, but they're healthy. So that's not the issue. And San Antonio needs to win. If they lose 2-3 in a row here, they can get bumped right out of the playoffs. So I'm real high on Murray and DeRozan. We'll have that late night hammer sweat with 2 key guys that I'm going to spend up for. And I'd like to bring it back on the Sacramento side with possibly Wright and Hield. But if Fox and Barnes play, I want to hear what the minutes limit is and all of that stuff before I consider anybody else on that team. So could be a stack game for me, or it could be a key Spurs game. But I think this game is going to make some difference in the late night.
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to be watching it closely. Should be
Yeah.
entertaining once those coaches get together for sure. So
I said, what could go wrong?
Yeah, right. So we'll be building these lineups all day. If you're new to the program, we build full lineups for our members on FanDuel and Yahoo, and then we give the coaches a clipboard on DraftKings. And for FanDuel, we build two hybrid lineups that you can play in cash games and single entry tournaments. We build a GPP lineup that you can plug and play. So jump in with us this weekend if you haven't tried it out yet. Just go to our website, dfscoachtalk.com. Grab a membership. You could do the 3-day pass for $10 or join for a week or a month and get the rest of the regular season here and get started on the NBA playoffs. We are fired up for it. Going to keep rolling here every day with those lineups for our members. And then with any membership you get, you also get our baseball lineups and golf lineups, and then football is right around the corner. So jump in with us. Any questions, reach out to us on Twitter at DFS CoachTalk. You can follow the coach at JoeSarvadi. You can find me at Language Olympic. And if you don't mind, subscribe to the channel on YouTube if you haven't already. Certainly appreciate that. Coach, any final thoughts here on a big Friday?
You covered it all. Fridays have been a really busy day for us. A lot of 3-day pass people jumping in and taking advantage of all the huge amount of sports games. And again, just to drive it home, you don't pay for individual sports with Coach Talk. You come in as one of the family. You get everything we've got, all of our content, podcast, lineups, the whole 9 yards. So jump in, give it a try, and join us in some winning.
Absolutely. So thank you for joining us on behalf of the coach and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team. I'm Andrew Hansen, and we'll see you tomorrow as we look to crush it in DFS.